on the California coast near strawberry fields and the ocean, except for a brief stint in Poland teaching English. He has lived in Fresno for the past 2 decades. He has an MFA in creative writing and is currently the assistant director of Fresno State's Writing Center, where he focuses on facilitating small writing groups. Let's welcome Kirk Stone.
First I want to thank Megan for inviting me to come. I feel really honored to get a chance to read. When she emailed me asking if I had any ideas for a theme, I said, oh, no worries, I got poems about all kinds of topics. And then when I heard it was going outside, my heart sank because I don't have any poems about that. So I wrote a poem in explanation. It's called Why I Never Leave My Apartment. Why I never leave my apartment. I thought I was turning into a rhino. My eyes getting weak and all this new meat on my belly. But that was fine by me. Just me, my horn, and my cast iron hide. You can't defeat me. But then my bones turned the color of burnt plastic, and my blossoms fell out. And I started forgetting what you were for. You, listening right now. My gristle pulled in on the other bristle. My vowels evaporated. My consonants settled down on themselves and packed into hard pan, until I grew so dense, I could barely shuffle to the store to get calories. That's when I realized I was becoming a pulsar. My neutrons lining up like soldiers for decimation. Kirk distilling itself down into a star. And now I'm afraid this week's song is all I'll ever repeat. Okay, so then I wrote this poem in defiance of that poem. I could write about more than myself. I have humor in this poem too, but it's more about all of us. This is called, and it's a long poem, it's the only other poem I'll read. If I could pick my own name, it would take my whole life to say it. How would you like to be remembered? I always wondered what would be our pyramids. What would last past all of us? Until one night lost, I slowed my car under an off-ramp to try and get my bearings. And I saw the huge columns of bare concrete shadowed there. They had a great sense of undeserved age. Those could last, I thought. Could be all that's left of us. And yet, I started thinking about how little those had to do with any of us, like monuments to no one. And in my mind, I took the names of all those we loved that had passed before us and saw them on polished plaques, all brass, riveted onto those columns. Plaques circling from their shadowed tops down to the concrete curbs of the underpass, plaques flowing over onto the asphalt that covered the road, plaques up the on-ramp and onto the freeway, and then for miles and miles until every road was paved with them. And every day we would remember the dead as they sang under our tires. And yet, your name is such a thin child. Who really learned you by your name? My grandmother's name was Aline Leora Standridge. What does that tell you? When I think of her now, I think mostly of my father having to deal with the house full of things she left behind. Maybe those things would have given you some insight into who she was. If you'd been there to sift through everything with us, decide what was heirloom, what was trash, it's often all we have left, what was owned or touched or treasured. I want to take every worker from the factories making drones and all the engineers designing equipment for the fracking fields and put them to building great vessels to move through space, arcs as big as the sun. And then fill those ships with everything you've ever touched or loved or looked longingly on. Fill those great ships with displays and line the displays with red velvet and trim them in polished brass and place the items in them reverently, your keepsakes, pocket knives, lockets, childhood photos. Whole wings of displays filled with the clothes you wore and worn with your body. Your first backpack, the tiny barrettes that held back your childhood bangs, each ball you ever hit or dodged or threw, And why not grand halls lined with every car you ever drove? The smoky Civic, the Escort with the child safety windows, which made it hard to flip out a cigarette. The panel station wagon where you sat between your sisters on the way to church. And all the objects of work, too, because you held them. Wrenches, shovels, cast iron skillets, dish rags, spoons, dirty bandanas. Everything you wore out. Everything that was given to you and you loved. Everything that made you cry when it broke. Everything reserved, curated, displayed to tell the story of you. And yet, that's still not enough, is it? It's not the things that matter, but the stories that surround them like a good scent. Without the stories, those arcs would become great ghost galleries just filled with things, warehouses. Okay, if it's stories then. Once, my grandma had a toothache that hurt so bad, she went to the dentist and told him to pull all her teeth. The dentist argued for an hour, trying to change her mind before giving in and doing as she wished. And there she is, in that moment where the woman of the story decides she'd rather lose every healthy tooth than suffer so again. There resides a stubborn self-determination, a savage practicality that is something of my grandma's, and more than I could convey with any item alone. And yet, who chooses the stories that get told? Would Grandma have chosen that one story to explain herself? I don't think so. What stories will they tell about you? What stories would you want them to? I want to be remembered as kind and patient and forgiving, and yet the memories of my life that are most stubborn, most vivid, are moments where I was not kind, not patient, not forgiving. I hope the stories you will tell about me when I'm gone aren't stories about those times. Oh, how will we account for ourselves? Say patience was like a weight we strained and strained to lift, though we never quite could. Say our kindness was like the sun, some days strong and clear, and some days clouded over. I want some great power to make another world to set aside for us and all those we love. And it would be just like this world, living and moving and breathing. And when you ask me, what was your grandma Aline like? I would say, come with me and take you there. And we could see her as an infant at her mother's breast, and follow her as a child riding a bike, and follow her day by day through every moment of her life, see her go to school and play, see her get married at 14 and then making dinner and buying groceries, and going to her Baptist church, and follow her for years and years and years. And later see at the breakfast table as Grandpa slumps backwards to die, and see her get lost after that, and start buying cookie jars and clocks off the commercials on TV, and filling up her house. And you would see me there too, weaving in and out of her life. Look, it's the very end now. And here I come into her hospital. And there I am, kissing her forehead. And if you lean close, you can hear me say, I love you. I wish when I am gone and someone asks you, was he kind? That you could say, come with me. And go to that place and start from the beginning. And watch me as I fail and fall and flail about. And all the awkward ways I wasn't kind, but at least with context. And scattered out between the times I was kind. Even if it took you years to show them. And if your friend asks you, how do you want to be remembered? You could say, come with me. And take them to that place. Because you would be there even now. And you could show them, start at the beginning, the whole song of your life so far. And tell them, this is my name. Remember everything. Thank you.